yeah, that's a fight. It's a fight, it's a lie, that's a fight, yeah.
Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga back up, bitch? Why you always trying to press a nigga? If it ain't one thing, it's the next, it starts to stress a nigga. This overthinking that you doing, it affects a nigga. Patience running thin with you for real, bitch, don't you test a nigga. Ain't never been the type to show no one affection, nigga. She don't trust me, say I'm the reason she don't mess with niggas. Calls me toxic cause I ain't with none of the extras, niggas. Pushing me away, girl, once I'm gone, you ain't gon' catch a nigga. I'm feeling boxed in, I need me some space. There ain't no turning back like TK, I'm doing the race. Forget the bitch, a bag, the only thing I ever would chase. Thought you was coming with sight, your number getting erased. On to the next, you should've known how why the look on your face. Get the fuck from off my phone, it's best that you know your place. These years I'll never get them back, with you they go in the waste. Got what I wanted, now I'm skating and you getting Won't replaced. You let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? You always worried about me, stressing over things you heard about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe? Always saying you're hurting about me, that's who I am, ain't nothing perfect about me. Won't you let a nigga breathe?
That's a fight, that's a fight, oh that's a fight, yeah, that's a fight.
Yeah. Spence. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? I don't know.
We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. This is the show that does not waste time. And, yeah, we could do intros. So, let's just get it started, man. So, a lot of times, we're just told something so much growing up that it becomes our reality. And we just believe it to be true. Use this with any asset or facet of your life. You get told something so much as a kid, and you don't really, you're either not supposed to question adults, or it's just the way things were, and you're like, okay, and you just kind of keep repeating these things, and you keep believing these things, and it is what it is. One of those things in sports is 0-2. We've always heard in the NFL, teams 0-2 can't make the playoffs. And I always remember, even as a kid, as I was getting into sports and I was becoming more involved with sports and I was learning to love sports more, I was like, well, that never really made sense to me. We don't freak out in the NBA if a team were to start 0-4 or 1-4, get off to a slow start. There's 82 games. We wouldn't freak out if a baseball team, we've seen them have horrible first halves of seasons and still rebound to become a playoff team. But in the NFL, it was always, if you're 0-2, you might as well throw out the rest of the season. You're just not going to make the playoffs. It was only like a handful of teams that ever made the playoffs, right? They even gave us stats to back up this law or rule. And here's the problem with that stat. Bad teams are always going to find a way to start 0-2. That's the reality. Bad teams will find a way to go 0-2. Doesn't matter what's going on. Good teams should go 0-2, and it just be a couple of tough losses. We've seen Burrow go 0-2. They made the Super Bowl. We've seen other great quarterbacks who have started 1-1, 0-2, and they've still been able to rebound their season. There is now especially different from when we were growing up, there's 17 games. And again, I know the stats say, well, only one team has actually gone 0-2 and still made the playoffs and still went on a serious run, even with a 17-game season. That was Joe Burrow and the Bengals. But hear me out. Why don't we view 0-2 the same way we do as a team who goes on a 2-game losing streaks week 10 and 11? If a team is 9-0 and then they're 9-2, why wouldn't that same logic be applied there? Because we have examples, because we already know that team is good. We've seen them perform. And to me, that's the same way I feel about a team starting 0-2. And there's all these people in the media, all these people on podcasts, there's all these people in TV shows, and they're just screaming and hammering down, trying to get their takes off. 0-2, season's over, give up, pack it in. There's 15 more games, right? There's 15 more games to go. What if a team goes 9-6? Now you got to win a record. And 9-6 isn't a crazy record to go. It's not a insane stretch of a team performing. It's just 9-6. And that would get you a winning record starting 0-2. And I know that everybody truly believes this, because what if, again, you could be 0-2 just off some tough luck circumstantial losses? What if the Chiefs were 0-2? What if Isaiah likely gets his toe in and the Ravens convert on a 2-pointer, they win in overtime? What if Joe Burrow doesn't fumble? Now, instead of the Ravens and the Bengals being 0-2, we'd be looking at the Kansas City Chiefs at 0-2. Would anyone think their season is over? Well, that's not fair. That's Patrick Mahomes. And that's Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Two of the Ford, or in a worst case, two of your top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. Do we suddenly think because they're 0-2, the Bengals, who were a pick for a lot of people to make a deep playoff run and potentially challenge the Chiefs, do we think now because they're 0-2 they're no longer good? The Ravens, who were the 1 seed last year, won 13 games, had the MVP, played Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. Do we now think they're no longer good because they're 0-2? Do 2 games define your entire career? Do 2 games define your entire season? I don't think so. But you hear everybody, 0-2, can't make the playoffs. Again, what if Mahomes is 0-2? Would we give up on the Chiefs? No. Last year, the Chiefs started 0-1. They lost the season over to the Lions. If they had lost their second game, would we have looked at that team that much differently? No. The reality is 0-2, well, I know all the statistics support it, and they have all these numbers that throw at. This is the other thing. You can't just be pure analytics. Bad teams go 0-2 all the time. That's why those numbers are so skewed. Because a bad team's not rebounding from 0-2. They're just going to be 0-3, 0-4, 1-5, 2-7, whatever it is. They're just a bad team. We can see that. We can use our eyes. So yes, of course the stats say 0-2 teams don't make the playoffs. But most 0-2 teams don't have Lamar Jackson, a former league MVP, Joe Burrow, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Again, if the Bills were 0-2, would we think that Josh Allen still couldn't win, 10 of his last 15 games and get into the playoffs? We saw them get off to a slow start last season, and they rebounded and got into the postseason, won their division. This narrative of 0-2 for an NFL that just flat out does not exist anymore, as well for all my stat lovers. There's now 17 games. There's now an extra playoff spot. These guys have even more chance to rebound. It's not just, oh, you didn't play great in the first 10 to 14 days of the NFL season. Boom, your season's over. Again, I didn't really understand it growing up. And as I have gotten a little bit smarter, a little bit older, a little bit wiser, still don't understand it. And I still think it's flawed. 0-2 is not a death sentence. 0-2 is not, you can't make the playoffs. That's just false. Let's transition from there to a team that avoided going 0-2 by and the Atlanta Falcons beating the Philadelphia Eagles. Look, there's a lot, and everyone's talking all today about, oh, did Nick Sirianni make the right call? What if Saquon just made the catch? Thanks, because I had some prize picks on you, but I guess not. It's okay, Saquon. I don't really care about the game. It just lost me some money. Then everyone's going to dissect how the game looked. When there's two realities to last night's game. A, it was a really bad loss by Philly. You are supposed to win those games. You're up. You're controlling the game. It's in the fourth quarter. You're not supposed, that's the kind of game that all fans cross their fingers and go, oh, maybe they'll just mess up. Maybe they'll just mess up. And teams only really mess up legitimately 1 out of 100 times. And that was the one last night. That's why all the percentages and the stats go, what was Philly's chance to win? And it was like 99% with 2 minutes to go. That there's a bunch of fans who sit on their couch, just fingers crossed, oh, maybe this can happen. And 99 out of 100 times it doesn't. Last night, Philly gave it away. Now, the other reality of that is Nick Sirianni, for how his team finished last year and how they lost in the postseason, to how they're starting off this year, last night are the kind of games that get you fired. It sounds weird, because if that exact same game had happened in a 10 o'clock window, it'd be a bad loss. It would affect his coaching record. But it wouldn't be a game that people would really focus in on and go, should Nick Sirianni be fired? Do the Eagles still believe in Nick Sirianni? When you lose in a standalone primetime game, your owner, who was a billionaire, paying all these hundreds of millions of dollars to run the team, pay everyone, organization, stadium, players, vendors, all that stuff, and they have a standalone game, a Monday night game, a Thursday night game, a Sunday night game, America's game of the week, it looks really, really bad, and those are really embarrassing moments, which is why you don't see most coaches get fired because they had a bad 1 o'clock window. You don't see most coaches get fired because they had a bad 4 o'clock window game. You see a lot of coaches that get fired because of a Monday night collapse, or a Sunday night game that get blown out, or a Thursday night game team looks unprepared. Those are when most coaches get fired, because everybody's watching you. Everybody has their eyes on you. I just talked to Tony yesterday. He was on the episode yesterday. If the Raiders-Ravens game was Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, people would be hammering for John Harbaugh to get fired. It's time to move on. And while I know Ravens fans, and Tony and I talked about it yesterday, while I know they're having that conversation, that is not a general consensus conversation. That is not leading sports shows today. Do you know what is? Nick Sirianni and the Eagles collapse on a standalone Monday Night Football game. Those are the kind of games that get you fired. Again, like last week, the rookie quarterbacks, the people that are really into it, they were kind of going at all three of them. This week, you know who's getting the most talk about, the most blame? You know who's leading sports shows? Caleb Williams. Why? He was on Sunday Night Football. The world watched him struggle. And you might not think that's a big deal, but to owners, to executives, that's what everybody's watching. This is your chance to prove how good, how bad, how prepared. And when you come up short in those games, it says something, man. It's a fun start. It's a wonderful Tuesday. A lot more to talk about, including what Brock Purdy needs to, I hate to say prove, man who's already been to a Super Bowl, but what Brock Purdy needs to prove. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. feel bad for you. Man, he's straight cheeks. Why would Denver draft him at 12? Bro, he's a second-round pick. Did y'all just see the same game I watched? Probably not. You probably didn't watch the preseason game. But Bo Nix looked great. And he looked every bit as advertised. Which, remember, the advertisement of Bo Nix was not, oh, he's Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels or Drake May on a talent level. It was good quarterback, understands the system, is very accurate, can be productive, and he has Sean Payton as an offensive coordinator. And he looked every bit the part of it. And don't tell me it's only preseason, because if he was bad, you'd be dragging him for playing bad during the preseason. And remember, very important note, Packers didn't play their starters. Good NFL players against backups, that's what they do. They dominated. And Denver dominated last night. Bo Nix, QB1. I feel bad. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. So, a lot of stuff to still go over, man. Love football season. Love football season. I don't know where you fall on the Brock Purdy. Is he good? Is he a system player? Is it just the reality that the Niners have more talent? I do know this. Wherever you fall on the Brock Purdy discussion, the next 4 games are going to do a lot to sway the conversation. Because Brock Purdy, whether you think he is the guy, whether you think he's not the guy, these next 4 games are going to prove a lot. He has, in the next 4, and I understand, this is without Christian McCaffrey and this was without Deebo Samuel. And it's like, oh, to the critics of Brock Purdy, like, this is what we wanted. We want to see him without maybe the best supporting cast in the NFL, and the people that defend him that say, well, that shouldn't be held against him. He's just doing what he's got. Well, the reality is he's got to get paid, and it will kick in either next season or the year after, depending how they want to do options. So going forward, he's not going to have at all points in time an all-pro left tackle, an all-pro tight end, an all-pro running back, 2 all-pro receivers, an all-pro linebacker, an all-pro defensive end, and an all-pro safety. He's just not going to have 8 guys at that level. It is going to be impossible to afford all of those guys. If you pay him, maybe you don't have to pay him Dak $60+ million a year, but if you get into the $40, $50 million a year range, unless he's willing to take a Baker contract, which at this moment I'm not going to try to assume or read his mind, you're not going to be able to afford all of these guys. That's the reality of it. Yes, Philadelphia has been able to figure it out, but Philadelphia doesn't even have quite the amount of players at those positions that the Niners do. Philly has a lot of its best players on the interior linemen, which those contracts have not totally skyrocketed the way tight end money, receiver money, left tackle money, the positions, pass rusher money, the position that the 49ers have a lot of talent, and the position the 49ers have to pay a lot for, they're already premiums. And so Purdy over his next 4 games, again, no Christian McCaffrey, no Deebo Samuel, he doesn't even have to light the world on fire. But everybody's got to be able to look, especially the 49ers who are going to have to commit to paying him if they do. How do you look? You have the Rams, no excuses there. You think the 49ers have a lot of injuries? Look at the Rams. The Rams are basically playing, who can we send an MRI next? No Nakua, no Kupp, multiple linemen, corner injuries. The Rams are decimated everywhere. Yes, the Niners have some injuries. The Rams have more. The Patriots, you could miss 2 more stars and have more talent than the Patriots. Then the Cardinals, Seahawks, I will give this. I think both those teams are better, maybe just slightly, but they are better than what most people expected. Brock Purdy, if he wants to actually move the needle on the way people view him, the way people think about him, and what people expect of him, he needs to go at least 3-1. I'll give some room for error because the Seahawks and Cardinals are division games. At least 3-1. You have to beat the Rams. You have to beat the Patriots. You're just more talented, less injuries. And then if you split Seattle and Arizona, and you don't look outright terrible at any point during this next 4-game stretch, because the 49ers schedule is going to turn back on. Now, by that point, they should have Deebo back, CMC should be back, and they'll be back to the normal 49er stuff that they've been doing. I'm still very, very high on the 49ers. That has not changed. But Brock, if he wants to prove, hey, where do I fit in this hierarchy of NFL quarterbacks? Am I slightly better or worse than Dak Prescott, which gets me into this tier? Can I show that I can play like some better than the young guys who got paid? A Lawrence, who at some point we need to discuss, a Jordan Love, a Justin Herbert. Yes, he's never going to be the talent, the pure talent that those guys are. And that's fine. No one's asking him to be that. They're asking, can you still perform with a new set of circumstances, which is going to become your reality the second you are very well paid? The second you're really well paid, we go from 8 potential all-pro players down to 4 to 5. And is that the difference in you being able to continue to win games, produce, and get us to where we want, which as long as this core is together, whatever we want to define as this core, this is a Super Bowl roster. No arguments. They've been, if the Kansas City Chiefs did not exist, this is the most successful team of the last 5 years. If Patrick Mahomes was not real, it's his birthday today, if he was not real, they have 2 Super Bowls in the last 5 years. So Purdy has to prove over these next 4 games, you cannot look terrible in any of them. You can, and if I'm going to give you one that you could look shaky, is maybe Seattle and Mike McDonald's defense. That's it. But you got to show everybody, your critics, your believers, the people that just casually like you, 49ers fans, the 49ers front office, ownership that has to cut the check. Are you worth cutting a $50+ million a year check? Again, we talked about this in the opening with the eyes that are on you. Eyes are on you when you get paid, the same way they're on you when you're in a standalone game. Can you produce so that when everyone's watching, you're showing everyone, yeah, I'm worthy of this? And I don't think that's unfair. There is CEOs, which is basically what a quarterback is to a football team, CEOs of major companies who people are always watching because their salaries are known information. And when your salary is known information, there is somebody that's going to think you're overpaid. There's someone that's going to think they can do their job better than you, and they're going to come for your spot. That's sports in a nutshell. Competitiveness, people want what you have. So your next 4 games, Patriots, Rams, Cardinals, Seahawks, you got to win 3 of the 4. And besides the Seattle game, because those other 3 teams just don't have good defenses, Patriots are This is where Purdy needs to earn his money. And he can. He performs in all 4 of those games, and the Niners go on to have the typical Niner season that we expect. He will get paid. 1,000%. Speaking of a guy who I think is paying to get is playing to get paid. So I feel kind of bad for this one. The Sam Darnold situation is really, really interesting to me. So there's a resurgence of, over the last handful of years, quarterbacks who have been deemed a bust, unsuccessful, and have moved to a couple different teams. And they've been able to rebound. Geno Smith in Seattle, Baker Mayfield in Tampa, and what currently looks like the current iteration is Sam Darnold in Minnesota. Coming off maybe his best 2-week stretch of his career. He just played the 49ers, beat them, and it looks like he is following this same template that Geno used, that Baker used. These guys who, it didn't work out in the first spot, they get to a second spot, boom, or in Sam's case, a third spot, and you're starting to see the career resurgence. We talked yesterday about coaching. A lot of these guys, because the NFL is so system-based, a lot of these guys, they just need to have the right coach. Whether that's a coach that believes in them, whether that's a coach that is systematically going to make them better, whatever the scenario is, they just need the right coach. And then all these guys too, the big thing, this is where I think Sam is going to be left in somewhat of an awkward spot, is Geno got paid, Baker got paid, who's going to pay Sam Darnold? The Vikings aren't going to pay Sam Darnold. They just drafted J.J. McCarthy. That's their future. That's their franchise quarterback. So they're not going to give him a long-term deal or even one of those 3-year deals like Baker where he just gets a lot of money up front. They're not going to do it. They just drafted a guy. And who is going to? We just had 6 quarterbacks drafted in the top 12. So presumably, out of those 6, who's really trying to go to Sam Darnold next year? Even though Jaden Daniels hasn't lit the world on fire, Caleb's been struggling, Bo Nix has been struggling, they're not going to move off those guys for Sam Darnold. And the other guys, Drake May hasn't even played yet, so he's not going to be in competition for New England. Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. And then obviously, again, the 6th quarterback being McCarthy, who Minnesota drafted. Well, the Panthers just benched Bryce Young. I don't think Sam wants to go back to Carolina. That's a mess. He's already proven and he's already knows for his own sense of reality, hey, I did not succeed here. This is not going to be a good situation for me. So who pays Sam Darnold? Especially when you consider, yes, Geno was able to produce in Seattle and got paid by Seattle. Baker was able to succeed in Tampa and get paid by Tampa. Well, Sam's not getting paid by the Vikings. So who's going to pay him? Because if I'm another team, am I trusting that I'm going to be either myself or my coaching staff, my offensive coordinator, we're going to be able to get the most out of Sam Darnold like Kevin O'Connell? I just called Kevin O'Connell one of the 4 best head coaches in the sport yesterday. And his growing resume has him trending that way. Again, I probably put him there a little preemptively, but he is going to be, you're going to look back in a few years and be like, yeah, that's clearly one of the best coaches in the sport. And he's throwing to, currently, Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in the sport. When he comes back from injury, Jordan Addison. He has the tight end. And he's got a good offensive line. So, who is going to be able to say, we can give Sam all of these things, brilliant offensive mind, best receiver in the league, a really good second receiver, a tight end, good O-line, scheme. Who's going to give him all that? Now, Sam will always, if this season continues the way he goes, he'll always have a chance to be a backup. But is that what he wants? Like, the trend of these quarterbacks kind of retreading and figuring it out, they all wanted to get one big NFL payday set you up for life. And I just don't know who's going to be the team to pay Sam. Now, this could all be irrelevant because Sam Darnold could revert back to old Sam Darnold and he cannot finish the comeback story like Baker and Geno, and then none of this is an issue, and he's already probably done enough to justify always being the backup in Minnesota. Because 2 good games for your backup quarterback, that's really all you would ever ask for anyway. So, I like Sam. I think the story's really interesting. I think it's a cool story. America, we root for comebacks, all that good stuff. But how does this story end? Because I don't see anyone paying him. I don't see anyone giving him the big NFL contract. Again, you're not going to have Justin Jefferson everywhere you go. You're not going to have Kevin O'Connell everywhere you go. You're not going to have a Jordan Addison everywhere you go. You're not going to have a TJ Hawkinson everywhere you go. So, again, I really like the story, but I think it's not going to end up like Baker's story. It's not going to end up like Geno's story. So I am curious where the story ends, but it's been really cool to enjoy the ride. When we come back, it's Tuesday, we have to deep dive. Are the Denver Broncos becoming the new Cleveland Browns and Detroit Lions of the NFL? This is a very sad HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. Why do we watch sports? I love sports. I could watch football from the morning to nighttime. I could watch Christmas Day basketball morning to nighttime. I can watch a baseball marathon back to back. Do people watch sports just to go on Twitter and troll people? Dare them to have a bad game. I hate ring culture. Yes, we acknowledge Michael Jordan 6 rings. We acknowledge Tom Brady 7 rings. Out of everybody last year, the only one allowed to be happy is the Texas Rangers. Also a Broncos fan. Maybe that's my disconnect. I still watch sports because I love watching sports. Why do we watch sports? And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody, as always, for tuning in. It is Tuesday, and over here on HardFoul on Tuesdays, do Team Tuesday. And this one's depressing. I don't really have a way to put it. It's just depressing. So, growing up, there was always, it felt like a cursed franchise. A franchise that just couldn't get it right. You would see them, it obviously starts with there'd be very little success. They're not going to the playoffs. They're not winning many games. And it almost felt like no matter what they did, it just didn't work. Because in the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and we're talking about the Broncos, so they just stay with the NFL, right? Everybody copies everybody. So meaning an NFL team starts having success, other teams start hiring their coordinator, start hiring their executives. They start trying to pull away from this team because they see, hey, they figured out something that could work. It even works with free agency. You get a bunch of guys that are all performing, all doing really well. Other teams start signing your guys, offering more money, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it literally is designed in a way where if you figure out a way to be successful, other teams are going to be able to take away from you to help improve themselves. And if you're a smart NFL team, this works. It just does. It works. We've seen this throughout history. We've seen teams totally rebuild themselves with 1 or 2 good off seasons, a couple good drafts. Teams generally figure it out. And most teams go up, down, up, down, up, down. And most teams until they run into their franchise quarterback. Until, the Colts are up and down until they get Peyton Manning. The Kansas City Chiefs up and down until they get Patrick Mahomes. The Buffalo Bills up and down until they get Jim Kelly, Josh Allen. That's normally how it works. Growing up, though, there were 2 teams that always just felt cursed. That was the Cleveland Browns and the Detroit Lions. It didn't really matter what they did. They just couldn't get it right. They couldn't sustain winning. They couldn't sustain success. And it wasn't like they never had good players and or good coaches. The Lions had Calvin Johnson, Matthew Stafford, and other Pro Bowl type level players during the course of their run. But it didn't matter that they had the best receiver in the game. It didn't matter that they had a extremely talented number 1 overall pick at quarterback. It didn't matter who the coach was. They brought in Jim Caldwell. They brought in guys from New England. They tried everything. And consistently, it led to losing season after losing season after losing season, not making the playoffs. Didn't matter what they did. And Ndamukong Suh was there. They just found a way to lose. Cleveland Browns the same way. And they had talent. Remember that 2007 Browns team, which was the first time they'd won double-digit games in years? Double-digit wins. Couldn't make the playoffs. Derek Anderson, good for a year, immediate fall off. Braylon Edwards, immediate fall off. Kellen Winslow, immediate fall off. They had Joe Thomas, maybe the best left tackle, him and Trent Williams, since 2000. Nothing. Winless season. The Browns get Baker. They did, it just felt like these 2 franchises could not get it right, no matter what was going on. And I used to laugh at them. Because I was a kid, I was growing up, and I just always thought, man, you guys still can't get it right? You can't get, anything right? You can't get the quarterback right, you can't get the coach right, you can't get the roster right. And there were players, there's always players on every NFL team. But these 2 teams could never put together consistent winning. Are we following along, or this got depressing? The Denver Broncos in 2015 won a Super Bowl. It was one of the coolest moments of my life. I was not sure how long. I'd always heard, about Cubs fans waiting forever until their team won a World Series. You hear about the Red Sox going 100 years. And I was like, I didn't want to be, and you can't control this, but I didn't want to be the guy who roots for the team that goes on these prolonged periods of never winning anything. Especially because when I was born, I'm born in 94, the Broncos won 2 Super Bowls when I was 3 and 4 years old, one back-to-back. Elway, Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp, those teams. And then they won in 2015, and I was like, we did it. Little did I know that would be the last bit of success I would get for almost a decade. And where they feel relatable to the Browns and Lions is that in that stretch from 2015 until now, you still had for a few years what was left of the no-fly zone, Aqib Talib, Chris Harris, TJ Ward. You still had Von Miller. Okay, well, 2016 didn't go well. Okay, it's fine. You just won a Super Bowl. Okay, retool. Still have some of those guys. You get a Bradley Chubb. I'm sorry, not Bradley Chubb. Apologize. I'm jumping up a few years. And you start thinking to yourself, hey, let's bring in you still have a defense that is top 5, top 10. We just need a quarterback to keep us in games. You start going through the Joe Flaccos, the Case Keenums. Go a couple years later, you get into Teddy Bridgewater. Draft Paxton Lynch. You still had for a few years after the Super Bowl, Demaryius Thomas, rest in peace, Emmanuel Sanders. The last few years of Gary Kubiak coaching. None of it worked. They went 8-8, and then losing season. And that's all we've had since then. It's not just one head coach. They've had many. Kubiak, Vance Joseph, Vic Fangio, Nathaniel Hackett, currently Sean Payton. And it's almost comedic the way the Browns and Lions used to lose. It's almost comedic. The Browns and Lions would do all this stuff almost seemingly right, still find a way to throw the game away. Denver, it's sad, but it's almost comedic that since 2016, they've never really figured out offense. Almost every Bronco game over the last 9 years feels the same. Defense keeps you in the game. Offense can't score, honestly, more than 20 points, if that. And then you lose. But you feel like you're right there because the defense held you in games. Von Miller was still Von Miller. The secondary's never been truly terrible. Have some good linebackers mixed in there. Some good defensive linemen mixed in there. You get Drew Lock for a year, and it looks like, oh, he's going to be the guy. Doesn't work. Teddy Bridgewater gets you off to a 3-0 start. That doesn't work. You have some of these signature wins. You beat the Cowboys in Jerry World. And I'm watching this game last Sunday. And again, I'm not someone who's trying to sit there and overreact and get, these certain things out just for clicks because they sound nice or they sound catchy. And I realized I'm watching this game and I'm like, okay, low scoring game against the Steelers. The Steelers score a touchdown. And it's like, are we going to score a touchdown? Is it ever going to look easy again? All teams, even bad ones, get a couple games a year where it looks easy. Like just everything's right. The offense clicks. The defense is making some big plays. It just looks like it clicks. I don't know the last time that happened for Denver. Oh, wait, I do. It was specifically that Cowboys game, Teddy Bridgewater in Dallas. I got one game where it looked easy. Actually, I can think of two. It was the first season post the Super Bowl when Denver beat Dallas, and it looked like Trevor Siemian was still going to be okay, and Denver was still going to be elite. And since then, it's just been this revolving door of crap. Then it was Russell Wilson. He's going to be the savior. Immediately tanked. Then they bring in Sean Payton. It's like, oh, Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, they don't get along. Doesn't work. Start 1-5. Yes, they went on a 5-game win streak, and it was incredible to see him win that many games in a row. Still weren't scoring a lot of points. Still felt gimmicky on offense. Still felt like we're still behind in a lot of these games. We're still not really dominating the way that you feel like you just sometimes look at a game and you're like, okay, that should be it. That should be a win. That should be a win. I can't look at a schedule right now and go, oh yeah, that should be a win for the Broncos. That's the same position Lion and Browns fans are in. No game just looks like a win. And to make this even worse, to do my full comparison of the Browns and Lions, the Lions had to watch the Packers go from Favre to Rodgers. They had to see the Bears even get Jay Cutler get to a Super Bowl in 2006. They've watched the Vikings have success. The Browns had to watch the Ravens and the Steelers draft franchise quarterbacks, Roethlisberger, Flacco, Lamar. Even hell, the Browns had to watch before they really got their thing going. Even get the Bengals get Joe Burrow. As a Bronco fan since that Super Bowl, I've had to watch the Chargers get Justin Herbert, the Raiders draft Derek Carr, and of course the Chiefs draft Patrick Mahomes and are currently the NFL dynasty. I never thought that I would root for the team that people just consistently make jokes, insult, is just uncompetitive on most Sundays. Denver can't figure out offense, can't figure out winning in general. They've gone through several head coaches, spent a lot of money in free agency, several different coordinators, several different quarterbacks, and it's just something there that it just doesn't click. Doesn't work. That's the Lions. Can have Stafford, Calvin, still can't win. Ndamukong Suh, still can't win games. The Browns, Joe Thomas, other great players along the year, can't do it. You even get these high draft picks who it's like, oh, these are like no-miss guys that are absolutely going to perform. Bradley Chubb, who did have a Pro Bowl year in Denver, but if you look at it, really not a real Pro Bowler. It was just kind of one of those things. So I just ask, have the Broncos become the current Cleveland Browns or Detroit Lions? I understand it's 0-2, and I'm not here. This is not a reaction to just 0-2. This is a reaction to 9 years of borderline incompetence for a franchise that at one point had one of the highest winning percentages in NFL history. Had a decorated head coach, who we're going to get to in a second, and Mike Shanahan. Had multiple All-Pro and notable players, Champ Bailey, John Lynch, Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp, Rod Smith, Demaryius Thomas, Peyton Manning, Emmanuel Sanders. This was a proud franchise. Now they're the Browns. It's rough, man. It's rough. This is HardFoul Radio. Back momentarily. and some guys there on defense who are absolutely worth it, as well as Mike McDonald coming in from Baltimore. You have Pittsburgh, TJ Watt, that defense. The Buccaneers defense, and then you have the Jets in week 4. So 2 out of the 4, you have elite personnel defensively between Pittsburgh and New York. And then you have a potentially elite personnel and a coordinator who just got the job because of how good he did with another team and is now a head coach in Seattle. So through 4 weeks, we're going to find out what this looks like. We're going to all know what is Bo Nix by week 4. And some guys there on. And we are back. It is time. So I want to say really quick before we get just directly into the power rankings to kind of also finish off a little bit of Team Tuesday stuff. Can we get Mike Shanahan into the Hall of Fame? These are 2 quick things I just want to hit on this real quick. Well, the first one I want to hit on, the second one I want to hit on after power rankings. Can we please get Mike Shanahan into the Hall of Fame? Look at the current dominant. Oh, we got a logo up. Haha. Whoops. So can we get Mike Shanahan into the Hall though? For real. Like, let's just be honest. Can we get Mike Shanahan into the Hall of Fame? He is the current dominant offensive system. All plays off what he started almost 30 years ago now. Almost 30 years ago. And that stuff is still being used. I heard all growing up. It was Bill Walsh and the West Coast offense, and that is what created this. Don Coryell and his air offense, and that's what's created that's the backbones, of the current passing game. Air Coryell. So why don't we respect the guy who his offense is being used by Shanahan, McVay, O'Connell, all these guys who are currently dominating the NFL from a coaching perspective? They are running forms of his system that he started 30 years ago. How come he's not in the Hall of Fame? How come he's not regarded as one of the greatest head coaches in history? Asking for a deranged friend, I guess. Anyway, let's get it started. So it is week 3 power rankings. We've gotten to see all these teams play 2 games, which is clearly enough information to make a totally 100% absolutely factual list that could not be possibly proven wrong by the time the season is over. And look, I'll be honest, this list is realistically in 2 parts. It is the bottom part of my top 10 is mostly teams that I have been extremely impressed with through the first 2 weeks of this season. The top part of my top 10 are still the teams that, despite records, despite play, and a couple other factors, I still just genuinely feel like are the best teams in the NFL. So, again, absolutely no way to possibly be wrong. Let's get it started. Top 10 teams, according to me. Coming in at number 10, I still have this team. I think despite being 0-2, if you look at their next 4 games, the combined record, they've only got 1 win from the teams they're playing the next 4. They're going to rebound. They've been here before. This is my pick to win the AFC North. I'm not moving off that pick. Joe Burrow gets better as the season starts. He has been a career slow starter. And so my comfort level with them being in this position versus when Baltimore was in this position is this team, this coaching staff, this set of players, they've all been here before. Are there things to dislike? Sure. Is their defense probably not as good as it's been in year past besides Hendrickson? Absolutely valid. Do I love Jamar Chase, who looks like he's extremely upset because the Bengals did not pay him and they did not come to a contract extension? That he's, he took out the insurance policy, which I get. And yeah, he's just annoyed. He wants to get paid. Understandable. But I still have a lot of faith in this team. I still think they're going to be there at the end. They're my number 10 team. Again, a lot of the bottom part of this are teams that have surprised me the most. I watched them play the Chiefs. Still have faith. This isn't a surprise. This is the team that I still feel the best about despite the record. Number 9 is the Chargers. And we just got to be honest here. I don't like the Chargers. I don't like giving them credit for anything. I don't like giving them props. I don't like giving them compliments. I am 1,000% biased in this regard. But the reality is the Chargers, while I still don't think they're going to be a playoff team when it's all said and done. I think some of this is they came out the gate and they know exactly who they are. Now, who they are might not be good enough over the course of 17 games, but to come out the season, they're running the ball. Herbert's not making mistakes. No, is he throwing for crazy numbers? Not at all. The emergence of Quentin Johnson after a horrible rookie season, that's a positive sign. Obviously, what their 2 tackles are doing, dominating, all that stuff looks great. This feels like it's weird because Herbert is their best player, but they're almost not utilizing him and having more success. It's kind of similar to what the Bills did last year with Josh Allen towards the end. But they know who they are. And this is going to be one of those teams. It's going to be incredibly hard to get them off their game plan because even with a star talent, star level quarterback, Jim Harbaugh is totally okay to run the ball 50 times with J.K. Dobbins. Number 8 is the Minnesota Vikings. Look, Kevin O'Connell, I put him into my great coach category yesterday, and I stand on that. What they're doing with Sam Darnold, this is similar to the Chargers situation. I still think I'm just not a Sam Darnold believer, and I think eventually Sam Darnold doing the stuff Sam Darnold has done throughout his career will show up, it will matter, and it will be the thing that kind of holds them back. But again, you can't deny the results. They beat the Giants handily. The score wasn't totally lopsided, but they were in complete control of that game against the 49ers. Again, the talent of these bottom 5 of my top 10, they're not going to be able to compete with the top end of this talent, but you got to give it up for them. Like the regular season, while I don't think it's as simple as just going, these teams are 2-0, these teams are 1-1, these teams are 0-2, you have to give some credit to the teams that come out and perform at the beginning of the season. And maybe no one has performed better the first 2 weeks of the season, maybe in NFL history, than the New Orleans Saints. All the stats are wild. 15 straight drives with a touchdown. Derek Carr would be your week 2 MVP, which is the stupidest segment anyone does on a radio show or any kind of sports TV show. But you can't deny the results, man. The New Orleans Saints, they've been coming out, kicking everybody's ass. They've been playing great. The offense looks amazing. I said yesterday, and this is where Clint Kubiak is going to have to really make his name, because right now he has buzz, he has attention, he has everyone's ear, but we are going to see, is he just trying to show you that his scheme is better than everybody else's, or is he proving that he is making an actual game plan on a game-by-game basis? And that's why it looked so dominant against Dallas. Again, now there's more tape on him. Guys are going to start to pick up tendencies, so we're going to see. Can you make a game plan or you just have a scheme that is clever for a few weeks and the rest of the league will catch up? But you cannot deny what they've done in the first 2 weeks. Maybe the most impressive team to everybody watching, except for me, it's the second most impressive team that I've seen in the first 2 weeks, and the Bucs are the most impressive. Look, I have Detroit in a really, really high space in my mind, and to go into Detroit, get that win. They obviously dominated week 1 against the Washington Commanders, but that win yesterday was one of the most impressive early season wins you could possibly have. Going into one of what was on mine and a lot of the media's consensus top 5 teams in football, a team that is tough, a team that is physical, offensive line, defensive line, and it wasn't like they just dominated. They just go in there and catch Detroit on an off day. No, Aiden Hutchinson had 3 sacks in the first half. Detroit was still playing like Detroit, and Baker, to his credit, he was making the right throws, not turning the ball over. He had the one where he shook a guy out of his shoes, which is insane to see in real time. That was one of the most impressive wins. Do I think they're going to be here by season's end? No, but again, the first couple of games, they gotta matter for something. And so the Buccaneers, to me, I know the Saints are scoring 1 million points, but the Buccaneers have been the most impressive team I've seen 2 weeks in if we're just evaluating play off the first 2 weeks. At number 5, I still think the Lions are stacked. I still think offensive line, defensive line, the talent on this team, the age of this roster, I understand, yes, they just lost to Tampa. I get it. And I just gave Tampa a lot of love, and that was an amazing win. But if you ask me, who do I want come playoff time? What roster? What quarterback? What coach? Almost every single time, I'm going to go with Detroit. Now, maybe I'm proven wrong at some point, but I have the conviction that this was a top 3 to 4 team in the NFL prior to the season starting. and 2 weeks isn't going to take that out of me. Did Tampa have an incredibly impressive win? Absolutely. But the Detroit Lions, to me, are no worse after 2 weeks, a top 5 football team in the NFL. At number 4, the Buffalo Bills, and I don't think enough people are talking about this. They have transitioned very quietly from being Josh Allen super usage to just Josh Allen is there, and if we need Superman, we can use him. Like, there's a really funny story. Like, if you want to compare Josh Allen to James Harden when he was on the Rockets, their usage rate, there's not a usage rate in the NFL, but if they were, that was kind of the level he was floating at. He was their running game, he was their passing game, he was basically everything. And so he went from that to the end of last season. They started running the ball. They're still playing great defense. Sean McDermott does not get enough credit for being, I know we've all thought, and I agree with this too, that, you need an offensive coordinator, offensive mind. Sean McDermott turns out a good defense no matter how many guys end up on IR, no matter how many guys miss games. He can just scheme up a defense. Buffalo again has a great defense. Buffalo's got a running game with Cook. And now they have Josh Allen, who they no longer need to sit there and be Superman during these games. He can just be okay or just good, and they're winning games. And if they need a Superman-esque play, this is protecting him, keeping him fresher. He doesn't have to be the MVP of the regular season. This, I think, is going to play a big role when it comes time for playoff time. At number 3, man, I said CJ yesterday. I think he's got to be, you have to move him up. So, like, Mahomes and Allen, to me, are the 2 quarterbacks that work anywhere. CJ, you got to move him up into that class. I love D'Amico. I love what they're doing with the roster. But this is mostly a CJ Stroud pick for me. I think CJ Stroud is the fucking man. He is in that top 3 quarterback conversation. And what they did for him this offseason, getting him Joe Mixon, getting him Stephon Diggs, that defense under D'Amico's playing, like, if there wasn't that dude in Kansas City playing, this would be my team to pick from the AFC. Just, if 15 did not exist, this would be the team for me in the AFC. There's just so much to like here. There's very few things to dislike or pick apart, and it is just incredible, this 24-month transformation, not even a full 24-month transformation, where they went from potentially picking number 1 in the NFL draft to they're a Super Bowl team. It's incredible. At number 2, again, I thought this was the best team overall in football, top to bottom. I can name them all off again. I got 8 to 9 guys who are all pro level. Brock Purdy, when he's playing, whether you think he is really this guy or you think it's just a support, when he's at his best, he plays all pro level-esque. And 2 weeks aren't going to deter me for that, especially as they look dominant week 1. Week 2, I think with Ayuk's rust is an issue. But I'm not really that even concerned about the Christian McCaffrey injury because, again, this is Kyle Shanahan, just like his dad. Anyone's going to be able to make that offense work, running the ball. Mason, 100-plus yards first 2 games. I don't think they're going to really suffer there. The Debo injury, again, I think with Jennings, if Ayuk knocks the rust off, George Kittle started to look like himself last game. This team, to me, is still top to bottom. It's loaded. They should still be representing the NFC at the end of the year. And at number 1, I hate them. I can't stand them. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, there's what are we gonna say? I'm a hater. I'm very vocal about that. But the reality is, until they really get knocked off, like someone has to knock them off this spot. They're not just gonna lose it. And that game on Sunday was a perfect example. The Bengals came. They were swinging. The Ravens even too. Like, both teams have come at them. Really good game plans, really aggressive, and still just not quite getting it there. We're not going to blame the refs. Yes, you can blame the refs any game. There's always questionable calls, but this is the number 1 team. In my opinion, these are the 10 best teams in the NFL. Now, again, the bottom part is more who I've been more impressed with this season versus the top part is who I firmly believe those are the 5 best teams in football. Only one last thing to talk about. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. And we are back to close it out here at HardFoul. Yeah, and we are back to close it out here for HardFoul Radio. So, I was thinking about this, and this is one of those ideas I just kind of want to put out there into the world and then see where it goes. So a lot of the last couple of seasons, one of the most discussed plays, if not the most discussed play, was the tush push. It was kind of crazy, right? It was the Eagles just doing this rugby-style play formation, and they were just constantly getting 1 to 2 yards. And I think that I was a part of the crowd, I was a part of the crowd that thought, okay, a lot of this is Jason Kelce. A lot of this is Jason Kelce. What he's doing is not normal as a center. His personal center of gravity, how quick he got to the ground, all the stuff he was doing, like, it was impressive from a center position, so much so that a position that's not really talked about, like, as a football fan, think of it, whatever team you root for, try to name the greatest center in your franchise's history. I know mine, Tom Nalen, because I just spend way too much time on this stuff. But the average fan doesn't really know their best center ever. It's not a position that gets a lot of stardom, a lot of people talking about it, a lot of people writing about it. And that's fine. That happens in every sport. And so but I'm watching that game last night, and I'm like, Eagles went 3 for 3 on the tush push. Maybe it's not a Jason Kelce thing. And it just made me think, why don't other teams try this? Who's going to be the first team to go, you know what? Maybe it's not that Jason Kelce was this other, and I'm not trying to discredit Jason Kelce as an athlete or what he did as a career. He's one of the greatest centers ever. But if the new guy they brought in, if he can do it, why not try it with our center? And if you're like, oh, well, it's only because Jalen Hurts can squat so much, why not just bring in a running back? It's not like you're going to get deception. The Eagles don't run like deception or play action off the tush push. They just get the ball, hike it, push the motherfucker forward. So if you're an NFL team and you got 3 running backs on your roster, why not bring in your 3rd string running back and say, yep, we're going to tush push? Like, again, I was on the Jason Kelce is the reason this play works. But I just watched it work 3 times last night. Is it really a Jason Kelce thing, or is it just anyone who really wants to try it thing? Just some thoughts to close out the show. With that being said, I appreciate everybody, as always. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate you all so much.